2025 started with a blaze. If you recall, the year kicked off with a shocking series of wildfires that devastated LA and San Diego counties. Because of the state's ongoing drought problems and its ferocious Santa Ana winds, firefighters had an impossible task of trying to control the inferno. In the end, it took over 5,000 firefighters and several weeks to get the fires under control. People lost their lives, their livelihoods, and their homes. Some 18,000 structures burned to the ground across 57,000 acres of land. The worst hit areas were Altadena and the Pacific Palisades.
Overnight, flames reaching the iconic Malibu neighborhood and its beachfront homes. In the coastal neighborhood Pacific Palisades, multiple homes completely engulfed in flames, with desperate residents rushing to get out.
In case you weren't familiar with LA, the Palisades is home to many major celebrities like Matt Damon, Billy Crystal, Jamie Lee Curtis, Tom Hanks, and Goldie Hawn. And while thick plumes of smoke still rose from the ground, victims of the fire were eventually allowed back in to see the rubble and the remains of their homes. One of them was Caroline DeMore, going to see the remains of her family home, the one she grew up in. Both the pain of loss and the residual smoke brought tears to her eyes. She'd already been through so much. Twists and turns from the highs of being the life of the party as a world-renowned DJ to being the victim of a diabolical con when she was a struggling entrepreneur. She'd been through alcoholism, addiction, even an overdose that had left her in the hospital and near death. And now, this. But suddenly, as she walked over what was little more than piles of ash, something caught her eye. Amidst the rubble, she spotted something. Right there, in the middle of a depressing mess of gray, was a bright yellow coffee mug. On it, emblazoned the words, "Enjoy today." It was small, but enough to bring a smile to her face and give her hope. This singular moment in time mirrored so much of how Caroline has lived her life, finding the little silver linings amidst rumbling clouds of gray, taking the least and making the most. Caroline is someone I've admired for years from afar as an it girl, but it was only recently when her life took a turn and then a tumble that I couldn't look away. Once upon a time, she was simply known as the girl with the pink hair and glitter headphones behind the DJ booth. Today, the world's eyes are on her for being, and for overcoming, so much more. It's quite the roller coaster, so climb aboard with Caroline DeMore today on the Gratitudeology podcast.
Will you walk through the fire? Would you ride through the storm? Will you walk on a wire? Will you save me if I fall? Will you break through the madness? Set us down where we're safe. I'll be right here waiting till you find me again.
Caroline DeMore, thank you for being here.
You said it right.
Yay! I have been just a fan of everything that you do for a long time, and that actually dates back. I think we both are Reformed Party girls. Man, girl, you have been through like 10 lifetimes. But I'd love to start out talking a little bit about your youth. It starts with a little bit of a sad story, but I know it also made you into the woman that you are.
I was 5 years old when my mom passed away, and she was actually sick the whole time I was alive. You know, I was lied to about how she died, and I did not find out the truth until I was about like 19 years old, 18, 19, something like that. And it's really weird because kids know. Even though they don't know, they have a feeling about something. And I like internalized that as like my dad was hiding my mom in the attic. How weird is that? Like, I always knew that he was kind of like not telling me the full story. Also, the beginning of my life kind of started with like a negative feeling about religion, because in the Catholic Church, they do a lot of open caskets. And I don't know who thought that was a great idea to have little 4 and 5-year-olds. You know, we were 4, 5, 7, and 11 when my mom died, and to come in and see their mom. I didn't get to visit her in the hospital because they said I was too young. And so then this is how I see her. And my recollection of it was that it was very traumatic, that we were trying to like grab her. I remember what her nails looked like. They were like this beige. I remember her face being like overly made up. I never got that out of my head. And I think kids can't absorb that, you know? So I had a really hard time with how my experience just with my mom right out of the gate.
What were you told versus how did she pass?
So I was told that she died of toxic shock, which as a young teenage girl obviously scared the shit out of me because, you know, I was getting my period and, you know, I was gonna have to use tampons and, you know, apparently she got toxic shock from a tampon, which apparently she did get a light form of, but then they wanted to do a blood transfusion that was precautionary. And they actually gave her the AIDS virus. So she actually didn't even need that blood transfusion is what I've heard about it all. But it's all been very like little bits and pieces of the story. So it's been really hard. You know, I had so many nightmares about my mom my whole life. And I was never one to go to the graveyard and things like that because I just had nightmares that she was just like, you know, underground.
I can't even imagine what that was like. And so then here's your dad, right? With the 4 of you girls. And I've heard you say like, you know, he kind of did his best, but I know it wasn't easy. So can you tell me about that ride?
It makes sense in a way that he ended up the way that he did. You know, I think he kind of lost it at a certain point. He did the best he could with the tools that he had. Do I wish that he worked on gaining more tools? Caring enough to go to therapy and figure out how to raise 4 girls or what the best option was? Yes, of course. But he did the best that he could is something I'm trying to really make peace with. But ultimately, like me and my sisters were like, it just progressively became us just taking care of ourselves.
And so he had a pizza business that was quite well known.
Yeah, single dad with a pizza shop. Like, it's very hard to make ends meet.
Right.
I give him credit. At a certain point, he was like one of the most well-known pizza shops in LA, probably like early 2000s. He had, I think, up to like 10 stores at a time, and like everyone in LA knew D'Amore's. But his stubbornness and unwillingness to grow and evolve obviously eventually hurt the business, and his inability to work with his children and to look at his children as people that were capable to like carry on the business and do things like that really hurt him. But yeah, it was wild. It was like we had to go to catering jobs as kids, you know, so he'd put me and my little sister in these pizza kid shirts, you know, we're riding in the pizza truck with a really hot oven and like all the equipment kind of flying around very illegally. I mean, I'm like sitting in the front, like there's not even a proper like seat. My sister's like trying to hold on in the back. We're like holding onto the pizzas, trying to pull up to the movie set that we're catering that night when we have school the next day. I actually ran into Patricia Heaton the other night and I told her like, oh, I've met you before. I was catering as a kid on your movie set and there's like a picture of us and I'm wearing a Pizza Kid shirt and it was cute. But I started working at a very young age. I do credit that time to instilling a work ethic in me that a lot of people just don't have, especially the younger kids these days. I'm very concerned. You know, even my daughter, like I'm definitely like instilling in her that she needs to work and take care of herself and like, you know, get some of those skills because I just feel like a lot of kids are incapable.
Yeah. I think for sure your scrappiness gave you your hustle. And I understand that like at a certain point you guys moved to, did you move to Malibu?
Yeah. My dad opens his first pizza place there. it does really well, but it's a pizza shop. He's got 4 kids, you know what I mean? So when people started to like look at me like I was some rich heiress, I remember there was like this article or something came out that said like, the pizza heiress. And this was the time when like there were heiresses and it was very like popular to be like a child of something. And a lot of my friends who I met through living in Malibu were all like the who's who of, you know, nepotism. Sure. And I've noticed like when the public sees you and they don't know what to make of you, they make up a story. Totally. Because they need a reason for you to exist. Right. And I didn't have publicists to kind of like help tell my story. So it was just like, oh, this like rich friend of, you know, Paris Hilton or whatever. And that wasn't the case at all.
But you were friends with Paris Hilton.
Absolutely.
And with Nicole Richie and the Kardashians as well, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that time. Because, I mean, I watched it, and we're like, you're probably a little younger than me, but like we're around the same age, I think. I was working in PR and working my way up the ladder very much in the Us Weekly and Page Six like moment when Perez Hilton like ruled and like blogs were super mean. Yeah. And really unforgiving to young women.
I have a funny story about Perez Hilton.
Oh, please tell it.
So he used to hang out at the, what's now the Starbucks, but it was a Coffee Bean at the time.
Bean. That's where he likes,
I'd go in there, and he was always in there, and he was always like chatting me up. And Paris Hilton was throwing my 18th birthday at her house, and I invited him. He's very nice to me now, so I don't want to have beef. But I did regret inviting him because that was my first experience. I ended up, you know, having a really fun night. Paris and I are wearing matching outfits. You can find these pictures on the internet. I'm sure it's just going to pop up right here. And we are wasted, dancing. She had a pole in her house, and my family's pizza truck's out front. There's this god-awful photo of her and I, like, wasted. And he posts that, and that's like one of his first big posts that I guess that I had seen, and it was my first experience with really being like, oh, that's really unpleasant, and all these people are commenting really horrific things. And
it was the social media before social media where that's where the trolls went. And it was such a horrible time for body image and everything for women. Like, it was just such an awful time. But you were holding your own, and you were out there like pounding the pavement with these girls. Some of it had to be fun.
I'm not gonna lie, like, times were really fun, and then times were really awful. Like, there was a mean girl energy, and I mean, one minute people are your best friends, and the next minute they're like crank calling your family home, or like, you know, throwing ice at you in the club. It's like, it's honestly not worth it, to be honest.
As one of the much envied it girls, Caroline actually spent some time modeling, working with major labels like Diane von Furstenberg, Heatherette, Agent Provocateur, and Stella McCartney.
No, I think everybody's grown up and turned out all right, but I think it was cool to be a bitch, and I just wasn't one. I just remember like crying literally one time. I won't name names, and I was just like, why are you so fucking mean? And she laughed, and I had tears like pouring down my face, and she just kind of like laughed and like walked off. But then the next day they invite me somewhere. It's honestly, it's a weird dynamic. Where you're like, why am I here? But why do I keep coming? You know what I mean?
Is that why you became a DJ, to kind of like rise above it?
I think that DJ AM, he was always the DJ at the clubs, and he was the sweetest human being. Like, he was a really good soul. And I just got mesmerized by him in the DJ booth. And I would be always the first one on the dance floor. Like, always the first one to dance to his music. And then slowly I ended up like in the DJ booth, and I would just like watch him. And he was so incredible. He was way before his time. He was the best DJ I've ever witnessed in my life. Sorry, but the DJs today don't even come close. He was just incredible and a really good human. And I wanted to be like that. I wanted to be in the DJ booth. I didn't want to be out with everybody else. I'm a little bit of an introvert, which is weird. Like, I want to be there. I mean, even now, like, when I'm at the parties, I'm picking things up I'm a service industry person, and I like moving around and taking care of people and making people smile. So DJing was like the best way for me to be able to pay my own bills. I had already dropped out of high school. And
How old are you when you dropped out of high school?
17. Well, I guess my last completed grade, was 9th grade, so maybe like 16, 17, yeah.
Who taught you to DJ?
I honestly just sucked when I started, and then I just got better through trial and error.
Yeah.
And I remember my first DJ gig was actually weirdly in this building. How weird is that?
That's so funny.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. So I got a DJ gig there, and I would DJ there twice a week. And it was like enough to like start to save to like get an apartment.
Yeah.
And I remember Questlove came up to me and he was like, you know why you're good? I was like, why? And he was like, because you're super confident. He was like, now just like hone the skills, you know? And that really gave me enough like kind of energy to go. And by the way, those girls made fun of me for DJing.
Right.
They're like, oh, who DJs? You know, like, and then all of a sudden everybody's a DJ. You know what I mean? But like, it's the truth. Like, I ended up falling in love with it. And I ended up kicking ass. And I was like one of the first females to have, you know, a huge residency in Vegas, you know, billboards everywhere. I was touring the whole world. DJing took me to standing on the pyramids in Egypt.
Tell me about some of this, because that's amazing.
It is amazing. I had 2 record deals, one with Universal and one with Sony. I did a whole J-pop record in Japan. Like I was like big in Japan. It was really hilarious. And I ended up just kind of doing my own thing, and absolutely like being friends in that circle like helped, you know, and all of that it was a fun, wild ride. But then like the dark side kind of always comes in, you know? So
was that drugs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I discovered drugs because well, first of all, kids with money, what do? When their parents aren't around, they just buy drugs. So they all had drugs. And I remember asking one of the girls how you do it, how you travel everywhere. Because I remember I fell asleep. It was either in China or Japan, and I fell asleep at a restaurant in the middle of a meeting because I was like, how do you do it, you know? And somebody introduced me to Adderall. And I was like, wow, okay, this is how you do it. So that's how I did it for many years. But, you know, it's like the magic pill that then turns on you, as does all things like that. And eventually, it just really started to turn on me. And I ended up in the hospital, and I had already had my daughter at that time. She was a little baby.
How old were you when you had your first?
30. Okay. So I had been going since from 17 to 30. I ended it much after she was born. Okay. I found out I was pregnant when I was in New York, and I was out and didn't feel right when I got home. It wasn't expected. And it was really crazy because I knew that the record label was going to drop me when they found out. I had 2 friends that had been dropped. This is like before the Me Too movement, before like there was a lot of like, you know, eyeballs on women. And I just knew it. I knew I was going to get dropped. So I actually hid my pregnancy for like 8 months.
Oh my God.
Yeah. No one really knew. And I got called out twice. Once was in a studio. I was working with an artist named Natalie LaRose. We did a pretty dope remix called Gypsy Woman, cover of Gypsy Woman.
And she stands there singing for money.
She actually tweeted out, this boss bitch up in here at 4 a.m., super pregnant. And then also I was on stage one night and a bunch of people like tweeted like, this bitch looks pregnant, you know? And then I got a call literally the next day. Like, is it true? And yep. And then like, I literally got my walking papers. So, and I had barely gotten my first record out. I was so excited because I had like just finished all these records. And I just was like, give me a shot. And I remember actually after they had dropped me, I ran into one of the A&Rs at this like, I also had a radio show for a while that was syndicated in several countries. It was like a house music show. And I had all those DJs on my show. Right. So I went to some conference in Atlantic City and he was there and he was like, oh, I didn't expect to see you here. And this was after I had my baby. And I was still trying to prove to everybody that I could do it. Yeah. But the truth is I couldn't. Yeah. If I want to be honest with you. Yeah. Like, when you're Gwen Stefani and you get pregnant, like everybody praises you. You're on the cover of magazines. It's lovely. But when you're up and coming and no one knows who the fuck you are, they don't support that. That was my experience anyway. And I just kept trying. I remember I went to the Philippines for a show, like when my baby was only 3 months old, and my boobs kept filling up with milk. And I remember it hurt so bad. I went into the bathroom on the airplane, and I was like, and I like squeezed them, and there was like baby milk all over the bathroom mirror in the airplane. And this is when I was just like, I'm done. Yeah. You know, like I was inching my way towards being done. I was actually done when I ended up in the hospital.
All the accumulated stress and anxiety, the drinking and the drugs, it all eventually led into Caroline's dark night of the soul and to an overdose. Fortunately, they got her to the hospital on time.
I woke up and my husband and my baby were like in the hospital. And they were asking me why I was trying to kill myself. And I was like, I'm not trying to kill myself. Like, I love my life. I literally just did too much. But then I just really, honestly, like, just didn't want to do to my daughter what was done to me, which is just your mom leaving at a very young age. And that's what changed everything for me.
So you start your sobriety journey at that point. And tell me what that looked like. Your first shot at it. Because we both have that in our story, that we weren't like one shot and done.
No. This is my third attempt at being sober. And I think a lot of people, those people that can just do it from the first one, like.
God bless. I wish I had stayed. And people said.
Me too.
Like, yep.
Being sober is like a superpower. It's like the best thing ever, especially for alcoholics.
It's the best. It's the best thing ever.
Yeah. The first 2 times I went to AA was solely because I had done something horrific or humiliated myself. Right. And it wasn't because I was ready. And you hear those stories in all the meetings all the time. Yeah. And it's the truth. Like, you're not going to go do it unless you are finally done. Yeah. And the truth is like, I was done when it wasn't after one of my most horrific moments. It was just like hungover again. The kids are in the other room. I have to like pull this off right now and somehow, spend the day with them. And I was just done.
As someone who spent my 20s in and out of recovery, trying to get sober and then tearing it all down and then trying again only to relapse and fail, I know how this feels. Sobriety is rarely linear. But the cool thing is that addiction is one of the only diseases that leaves you better off once you recover than when you started. Often, as a byproduct of going through the rigors of recovery, you come out stronger, with more discipline and integrity, better relationships, and a head for motivation, and sometimes even professional ambition, which is how Caroline found her way to what would come next.
So at what point does Pizza Girl come into the mix? Because you were Pizza Kid and you rebelled against that. Yeah. And then I heard that Pizza Girl was a little bit of like a fuck you to the family business because you weren't kind of being welcomed in to the family business.
Correct. Mostly by my dad's wife.
Got it.
Right.
That old
we
song,
have that step monster story for sure. But yeah, also listen, to their credit, I was this notorious party girl. And all of a sudden I like try to come in like I'm, a CEO. Right. And they're like, okay, like, chill out. Right. You don't know shit. The thing, though, is that I was raised in this business and I saw all the things that my dad did right, and I saw all the things that I thought he could do better. I thought Demore's should have had a jarred sauce in the supermarkets, years ago. And branding and products and, even just trying to like communicate, like we need to do social media. Like that was like impossible. Yeah. So it really was a fuck you to the family business. Yeah. And it was also like, because in an Italian family, like males rule, you know what I mean? And it's like, who's this girl thinking she's going to do this pizza thing? And even in the pizza industry. Yeah. The sauce industry, if you think about it, it's all like Rayo's, Newman's, Carbone, this, that. Like, where is the woman who is actually, cooking up this stuff for their kids every night? Like, where is she represented on there? It's either grandma, you're just putting her face on your jars, or it's male dominated, and it's same in the pizza restaurant space. It's all like, you know, Tony's and this and that, whatever. I remember my first kind of meeting with an investor, and she was a female, and she said to me, she was like, I'd never invest in a company with the name girl in it. And I was like, what? And she, because this was the time where women were really needing to like level up to men in a way to be taken seriously kind of in the workspace.
Like the Sheryl Sandberg lean in era.
Correct. And I said to her, I said, you know what? Girls are awesome. And I said, and not only is it going to be called Pizza Girl, but everything's going to be fucking pink. And I walked out. And there you have it. Now everything's fucking pink.
So everything's pink, including your hair.
Yep.
And you just go balls to the wall with Pizza Girl. You're like, this is my time.
Yeah.
Also, I love the sensibility of Pizza Girl. It was about being like organic with the right ingredients, right?
Yeah.
When I think of pasta sauce, yours feels more authentic and it also feels cool. But I know it's not that easy to just like lift a business off into like the atmosphere.
No.
And I understand you didn't have like a huge amount of capital.
No. I started my company on $5,000 thinking I was going to be able to figure this out. But you do need to be almost like delusional, I think, and also have that back against the wall. If this doesn't work, I have no plan B.
Right.
And if you're not like that, then don't start up a company, unless somebody gave you millions of dollars to start your company. Yeah, that's basically how it started.
Unfortunately, there was a glitch. COVID happened. Yes, and like so many other businesses, Pizza Girl got hit hard when the bigger companies bought out every available organic ingredient. Every jar of Pizza Girl sauce was sold in 2 days, but couldn't restock. She was stuck. Desperation creates the perfect storm for us to become victims, to want to believe in those who say they will help us, even if our inner voice is suggesting we remain skeptical. When times are tough, we want to believe that there are good people out there that want to help us out. Unfortunately, in Los Angeles, there's also a lot of bad actors in every way, shape, and form. And Caroline was about to meet one. Enter David Bloom, friend, investor, con man. Caroline and her Pizza Girl brand were about to become the centerpiece of a true crime drama fit for a TV movie. Only it wasn't a movie, though the story did become its own podcast called Once Upon a Con. No, this was her real life. And it all started in her very own apartment building.
The story of the con man that tried to ruin my life and so many other people's lives. But my story is the only one I can speak on. This man lived in my apartment building. It was an incredible building called the Villa Carlotta in Franklin Village. And he posed as this savvy investor, dropped names of people I actually knew. He really was able to pull on my heartstrings. You know, I was going through a divorce at the time. He said he was going through a divorce at the time. He actually even cried one time in front of me, which shows you what a psychopath he actually is. You know, he went and bought my sauce at the supermarket next door, and he was like, you know, like, this is incredible. And he was really, honestly, the first guy, except for this one manager when I was DJing, but I was too much of a mess to kind of realize that. But he was really the first older male figure that took me seriously, you know, and it was definitely a really good feeling to finally have someone who's not hitting on me, who thinks I have a great business concept, who wants to invest in my company. So of course, at that time I was like, you're fucking awesome. Like, this is amazing. So he started taking meetings with me, kind of mentoring me. I brought in my business partners. So eventually he gives us the great news that he got us a meeting with the CEO of Whole Foods, and He tells me, you got to come up to my apartment right away because he's on the phone right now. He has this long drive, and this is like your only chance to talk to him and pitch your brand. And I was like, what the okay, fine. You know, I was at that stage of life where I was like, I'll do anything, you know, that I have to do to bring this home. And I go upstairs to his apartment. He's like, AC Gallo was the name of the CEO. And he's like, I have Caroline here. And he's like, well, Caroline. And there's this guy on the phone who literally knows everything about the business, knows about my company, knows everything. There is no way I could have ever thought that that was a scam.
Of course.
You know, like on what planet?
It wasn't until later when Caroline found out that the person on the other end of the line was not AC Gallo at all, but an imposter who had apparently been coerced into pretending to be Gallo to ensnare Caroline into his twisted web of lies.
So it was just so insane to find out 6 months later. Like, this man was at my daughter's birthday. When you hear all the different stories on my podcast, you hear how he did that with all these other victims. This was a time when I just like, I was tired, you know? I really wanted like that win. I really needed it. My divorce was just destroying me. When I found out that he was a scam artist, after 6 months of thinking this person was like a mentor and very close friend, I'm not gonna lie, like I had days where I was suicidal. Like you can actually hear it in the podcast because my business partners were smart enough to record it because we were trying to record stuff for the police. So they just kept the phone rolling, and you hear me actually having a panic attack. I literally couldn't breathe because also like thinking about all the people I dragged into his web, the guilt and shame that I felt around when you're the victim of someone like this, when you find out the truth, it is like you almost like don't even believe it yet. You go back and forth between like it's like you go mentally insane trying to replay every story, every moment. How could you be so dumb? Like humiliation, just so many things. And I just remember him saying to me one time, like, they're never going to arrest me.
So what happened next, you ask? Well, there is so much more to this story, and the only way to really do it justice is to have Caroline unravel the mystery to you herself. And you're in luck, because you can hear the entire story, all of the unbelievable details, on Once Upon a Con, a podcast Caroline herself dedicated to this insane story.
But I figured this grifter out before he realizes it, and I start recording every lie.
We're selling it at $26.25 next Monday. And then 10 days later, you'll have a wire transfer or check.
Every con.
Hey, Steve? It's David. I'm going to put you on speakerphone and introduce you to Caroline.
And every manipulation.
I love you. Whatever you need till that money comes in, you just tell me. I'll hand it to you, okay?
He just thinks I'm just a freaking dummy.
But now the tables are turned. Like, he doesn't know that you know, and now you're playing him.
Getting a con artist to pay for their crimes isn't easy.
Charge David Bloom! David Bloom's a scammer!
But I'm not gonna stop until I bring this con man to justice.
Nowhere to hide now!
I'm Caroline Demore. Listen as I take down my scammer on Once Upon a Con.
But I actually posted a part of it on my Instagram, and it went viral, where I actually ended up grabbing a bunch of the victims. I had to be the one to like alert a lot of them and tell them, which was horrific every time. Because then I had to watch them go through what I had gone through.
Right.
It was horrible.
And a lot of them were in your apartment complex.
A lot of them were in the apartment complex, and some of them were not, that I had met like once or twice through him, or just found me on Instagram after I started going public about it. And you know, it's funny, I went public about it because everybody was like, don't go public about it. It's going to ruin your reputation. It's going to ruin your business, this and that. And I just remember my daughter's sleeping in my arms, and I'm hearing that he's dining at one of my favorite restaurants in LA. And I was like, he's just living it up right now. And fuck that guy, you know? So I just stayed up all night, and I wrote out the story line by line on my Instagram, posted it. And then here comes the shitstorm of now I have to go out there and fucking get this guy. And we did, you know? Alex Baskin reached out. He was like, let's get him. Let's help other victims. Let's do everything we can. And now he's sitting in jail on 18 felony counts.
Thank goodness. And I really do recommend that people go listen to the whole podcast, because the story of how you actually got this, brought light to it, is really, it's really something. Let's just say that. And you should be really proud.
Thank you.
So then after that, here's the great end of the story. Fuck David Bloom, because guess who's in Whole Foods? Your girl.
Yep.
So it ended up happening.
Didn't need him anyway.
You didn't need him anyway.
Pizza Girl is crushing it, which is very exciting. It has been an uphill battle every which way, and finally, we have these incredible multi-channeled business. I mean, we have the direct-to-consumer business with my amazing pizza ovens that are also now at World Market across the country, and they come in pink and white, and we're about to launch a new color, and they work so well. They heat up to 780 degrees and cook your pizza in 5 minutes, just like they do at the restaurant.
What?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's incredible, and the fact that they look like a cute little vintage thing that goes on your countertop. Literally, my friends send me videos of throwing out their like giant, expensive, obnoxious pizza ovens because they can't use them and there's so much work. And I also thought about, moms in apartments, college kids, like why can't they have pizza ovens, that work incredibly well, are easy to clean, and so those have been amazing. And then we have our brick and mortars, we call them the pink and mortars. Now we have Venice location and now West Hollywood. And we are going to be launching a new division soon, which I'm really excited about. So it's all coming together.
Until the spark that lit up the dry California woods and started the wildfire that tore through neighborhoods and devastated the lives of so many.
These devastating and deadly wildfires in Los Angeles County. 5 dead. Thousands of structures leveled. We don't know how many of those are businesses and how many of those are homes. It is just too urgent of a situation right now to get a specific count.
Caroline's journey to sobriety taught her that service to others is healing. So, like so many brave Californians who rose to the occasion, she rolled up her sleeves and pitched in to help.
I just know that when we are selfish, that's when we go down. When we are not helping other people, we are only thinking about ourselves. That's when our minds start to play these really dark tricks on us. So instead of sitting there thinking about yourself and poor me and what's happened to me, you take all of that energy and you put it into action. And for me, that's saved my life. When the Palisades fires happened, I remember jumping into action. And I remember actually getting in a fight with one employee and losing another because I showed up at the pizza shop and I was like, whoever wants to stay, stay. Whoever wants to go, I totally understand. But people are going to need to eat and I want to be able to help people. So I flagged down a firefighter I saw driving by. I was like, we have all these pizzas. Like, can I follow you? Who can I feed? He takes me onto PCH, onto the front lines, and for the next 2 weeks, my husband and I made thousands of pizzas for frontline workers and people in need. And we went everywhere from, the Altadena areas to Malibu to Palisades over and over and over and over again and just did that. And I posted the first day that I went and the firefighters were like, oh my God, they were literally covered in soot. They're like, thank you so much. Like, we're freaking starving out here, and that post went so viral. I think like 6 or 7 million people shared that or viewed that video. And they wrote me, the firefighters. Actually, some of them even come into my restaurant still just to thank me. Some of them, they wrote me and they said, thank you so much. They said, because after you did that in your post, everybody started bringing food and they were like inundated with food. So for me, that felt so fucking good to know that I made a difference with what I had. I didn't have to go, well, I'm not able to do much, right? Instead, I was like, what can I do within my power? How can I help whoever needs help right now? With pizza. Pizza makes people happy. Yeah, and we ended up, oh my God, we ended up feeding, and bringing, like they had to get a forklift for all of our pizzas at some of these big events. So we did thousands of pizzas and the community helped and everybody helped. So it was amazing. I went to see the house because I was getting the access onto PCH. I turned up Big Rock one day just to see the house and confirm to my dad that it was gone. And I just remember walking along the rubble. It was completely flattened. There's literally nothing. And I'm walking across the rubble and I just see this bright yellow mug and it says, "Enjoy today." And that is the only thing that survived. And it was just such a message. I actually have the chills right now. It was a message, whether, you know, my guardian angel is my mom, you know, like just be in the moment, be grateful for what you have gratitude every single day because we might not be here tomorrow. And I truly, the one thing I know that I have is so much gratitude. I'm so grateful for every day that I get to spend with my daughter, clean and sober. I now met the love of my life. I fought for love. I actually have a course I could teach on that. Women think that men are just gonna like fall out of the sky, but no, you have to get out there and you have to meet people and you have to know what you want and you have to know when to walk away. I'm so grateful for what I have. And I worked my ass off to get it and nobody just handed it over to me.
Caroline's journey has taught her about living life with grace and grit. It's taught her a lot about people and how they can be challenging and cruel, and how important it is to keep your own side of the street clean and be the best person you can, despite what others do. All this would come in handy during her next chapter, one she never saw coming. After the attacks in Israel on October 7th, people's algorithms were electric with violence and vitriol. Anti-Semitism began to ring at an all-time high.
Yesterday, the FBI issued a public service announcement highlighting what it says is an elevated threat to Israeli and Jewish communities. The warning follows the Colorado attack, as well as the shooting of 2 Israeli embassy staffers in Washington, D.C. last month. This week, members of Boulder's Jewish community gathered to honor the victims.
We really need love and support and help from everybody, every decent person, regarding of religion.
And Caroline, never one to shy away from speaking her truth, just thought it was plain wrong. And she was going to say something about it.
And what I saw you doing, Caroline, was showing up for Jewish communities at a time where like all of a sudden anti-Semitism felt rampant. And I gotta be honest, like it did feel, it felt very unfair and very scary as a Jewish individual who stood up during BLM and stands up during anything that feels unjust, to then just have everybody immediately go like that to you. And you're like, wait, what? And it felt like nobody was standing up for us, and it felt like you were that person. And it was just so special. Like, I need you to know that my sisters and I like cried every day and would send your posts to each other. We're just very grateful. It felt unbelievable. What made you do that?
You know, like I had never seen anti-Semitism. I grew up, a lot of my friends are Jewish. I grew up in LA, and I had never seen it like that. I honestly thought it was like a passed down PTSD from Holocaust survivors, understandably so, but I just didn't see it in today. And I was really blown away by it. And the only 2 subjects in school I actually remember learning about were slavery and a little girl named Anne Frank. And I remember how upset those stories would make me. And I would always think about like, what would I have done if I lived during that time? And it was always, I would have rescued them. You know, I would have found a place and I would have taken everybody in and I would have been so, like I always had this need to like stand up for people that were being treated unfairly. I think that stems from honestly walking in the AIDS walks with my sisters and learning about how cruel people can be to people who don't deserve it, like people who are suffering and possibly dying. And there's people on the sidelines with evil signs, like, so I've definitely just had this ingrained in me as a child. And like, my neighbor doesn't deserve a bunch of people calling her a genocide supporter when she's here, you know, in LA. These kids who I've now met with, and I've spoken all over the world on the subject now, and these kids in college campuses that are like literally terrified. I have these girls, they call me all the time. They're like, Caroline, can we go to lunch? Like, they're the sweetest girls in the world. They do not deserve to be tormented and treated terribly because of a horrific war that is happening.
Yeah.
And it is horrific.
Sure.
And I every day pray that it is over and that it can end and that we can live in peace. But I'm also not going to be like, but that validates the hate to Jewish people all over the world. It just doesn't. I mean, there's so many people being targeted, attacked, synagogues, people being, you know, run into in the street. Like, what? I'm just going to sit on the sidelines and not say anything because it's not politically in line with what everybody's feeling right now? Fuck that. That's just not who I am.
We're just all very grateful. That's not who you are. But thank you for being who you are, and you're amazing, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And who Caroline is a beautiful soul whose compassion and empathy shone brightly in her advocacy. She even traveled to Israel with her now husband, Omar Levy, who is a tzabar. In Hebrew, this refers to someone born in Israel. Soon after this impactful trip, they got married. And recently, Caroline announced that they are expecting a baby, a little girl. So there you have it. One-time party girl turned DJ, turned pizza mogul, turned mama bear. She's been up and down, addicted then sober, conned then became a conqueror. And we're all the richer for getting to know her. Want to learn more? You can follow her on Instagram at Caroline Demore and check out her pizza offerings at pizzagirl.com. That's all for today. Remember, if you like what you heard, if it impacted you in any way, and if you think it's a message other people in your life might like to hear, I'd be so grateful if you'd give me 5 stars, leave a quick little comment. Those things really help. And share this podcast with your friends, either on social media or just word of mouth. I'm on a mission for us all to help each other focus on expanding our attention towards what's good in the world rather than focusing on what's bad, one person at a time. If we all did that, even to our own little sphere of influence, the world has the potential to be a much more radically awesome place. Stick with me, friends. I've got your back. We're in this together, and it's a great day to see the greatness in the day. See you next time. The Gratitudeology podcast is written, executive produced, and hosted by me, Jamie Hess. Sound design and studio production by Gotham Production Studios. Our theme song is Maze by Hills, sung by Nadia Ali. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Gratitudeology.
Will you walk through the fire? Would you ride through the storm? Will you walk on a wire? Will you save me if I fall? Will you break through the madness? Set us down where we're safe. I'll be right